What's up, everyone? Tara Roberts here with 444, and we are talking early round wide receiver bust. These are big names, guys that could make or break your fantasy team and have real bust potential. If your draft does not require risky picks to get that edge, then you might just want to skip over Davante Adams because this could be a very volatile situation. I have the utmost faith that Adams can get his from literally any quarterback, but there is a weird scenario that could happen here. If the Raiders struggle to win, they could just actively decide it's time for a reset and tank for one of the top quarterback prospects because Jimmy Garoppolo's contract isn't really a big long-term commitment. We already know that Adams is disgruntled with the organization. If the season is lost and quarterback play is underwhelming and Adams is irritated, it's very possible that his production or availability starts to tail off. Adams is just an extremely risky play that could be a first or second round bust. Moving on to the next player, Deebo Samuel is quite possibly the most borderline bust/bounce back candidate in 2023. Deebo is technically primed for a bounce back season. He finished as wide receiver 40 in PPR last season, one of the most shocking dips in production of 2022. After an impressive 2021 season where Deebo had 1,400 receiving yards, 6 receiving touchdowns, plus over 300 rushing yards and 8 rushing touchdowns, Deebo had less than 900 total yards and just 5 total touchdowns in 2022. And he had just 2 weeks where he finished as a top 10 receiver. If you drafted Deebo Samuel, it was a complete disaster. So if a Deebo Samuel bounce back season is potentially underway, why is he an early round bust for me? Well, there are 3 very specific reasons. Number 1, Christian McCaffrey. The 49ers have always taken a group effort approach at running back. They've had the desire to operate as a committee, they have dealt with major injuries at running back, and they've had no true actual bell cow. And Deebo Samuel has been a strong contributor to the run game, but that type of usage might not actually be needed moving forward. Christian McCaffrey is a complete back. Even if the 49ers want to limit his usage for the long-term benefit, they're very confident in Elijah Mitchell. Deebo's rushing upside could evaporate. Problem number 2, Brandon Ayuk. Where Deebo faltered in 2022, Brandon Ayuk thrived, finishing as wide receiver 15 with a 1,000-yard, 8-touchdown season. And all off-season talk around Ayuk's development has been very positive, and the 49ers appear to genuinely love the progress that he's made over the past year. But if Deebo can reassert himself over Ayuk, not to mention George Kittle, there is also problem number 3, the quarterback situation. Brock Purdy is still recovering from his injuries, and supposedly he is on track, but it's still a shaky situation, and we don't know what the 49ers quarterback situation is going to look like to start the season. There are so many factors that Deebo has to overcome, and his ADP discount isn't really that great. There's a big risk factor here. He could be an early round bust. It pains me to put Terry McLaurin on this list because I have never not rostered Terry McLaurin, but 2023 will be the first year I will likely have 0 shares of Terry McLaurin. And it's a shame, really, because he's coming off his best season, finishing as wide receiver 14 overall with nearly 1,200 yards and only 5 touchdowns, but that is understandable considering the Commanders' 2022 quarterback play. Unfortunately, that wide receiver 14 finish is a little bit misleading. McLaurin only averaged 13.5 fantasy points per game in PPR. And average points per game of players that played more than half the season, that's actually more like wide receiver 22-ish. And that type of finish is just the type of finish that we have grown accustomed to from Terry McLaurin throughout his entire career. In 2023, I do expect the Commanders to see a bit of an offensive boost. I expect Sam Howell to start, and while Howell will likely have some growing pains, this could be one of the better quarterback situations of Terry McLaurin's entire career. It's not that long ago that Howell was one of the top prospects in college football. So given McLaurin's ADP matching my expectation for him as wide receiver 2, and given the potential upgrade at quarterback, why is it that I think that Terry McLaurin has early round bust potential? 1, he's being drafted smack dab in the middle of a very high upside range at other positions. Players like Joe Burrow, Justin Fields, and even TJ Hawkinson, along with running backs who have proven RB1 upside. I just can't find a single reason to draft him over those options. Issue number 2, Jahan Dotson. Volume has been the biggest thing that's held Terry McLaurin back. So what happens if Jahan Dotson's 2022 usage wasn't a fluke? And if this is a 1A, 1B situation, it's unlikely that there's enough volume to really give Terry McLaurin any upside. All signs are pointing towards this being the season where McLaurin potentially dips into the wide receiver 3 territory. It is no surprise that this next player is on my list. Anyone that has rostered Mike Williams knows the volatility that comes with drafting him. Often that volatility has been worth it because when he hits with league-winning upside. We saw it in 2021 where he finished as wide receiver 12 in PPR. But when that volatility combined with Keenan Allen missing essentially half of the season, the Chargers went out and drafted Quentin Johnston. Now, by no means do I think they intend to move on from Williams, but for the sake of their offensive consistency, I think we'll see Johnston get a decent usage early in the season when Keenan Allen and Mike Williams are even both hopefully healthy. There might not be a more boom bust player in fantasy football history. Mike Williams can go from 2 receptions for 10 yards one Sunday to 8 receptions for 100 yards and a touchdown the next Sunday. Completely unrelated to injury. No snap count issues, just random volatility. And as the Chargers start to mold Quentin Johnston into their future wide receiver 1, Williams' volatility just could get even worse. And finally, this is not a knock on Jaxon Smith-Njigba, including him on this list. This is just a bit of a reality check because he is being drafted at an uncomfortable ADP considering that he's playing with 2 guys who in tandem have finished as top 20 receivers for the past 3 seasons. And what makes this situation particularly difficult is that this is very different from the Chargers situation with Quentin Johnston. I love Quentin Johnston as a potential breakout this season as the wide receiver 3 behind 2 top receivers because Johnston was drafted specifically because Keenan Allen and Mike Williams struggled with consistency and their availability is a concern. But for Seattle, DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett have been very consistent and reliable. And even if JSN's talent does shine through because talent does earn targets and he becomes a vital part of the Seattle offense, do we really expect week-to-week consistency to be strong enough that you feel comfortable rolling him out in your flex position? Wide receiver ADP is a bit inflated right now, but considering JSN is the top rookie of the class and the immense hype that he had carried into the draft, I don't see that ADP coming down, because no one wants to miss out on a potential big rookie breakout. JSN has long-term value, very strong ahead of him, but currently he is a risky bet and a potential big letdown for your fantasy team. Thank you for watching this video. Be sure to subscribe and like this video and comment below and let me know if you agree or disagree with these potential busts. And stick around for more fantastic off-season content.